It's 6:30 a.m. You wake up, get ready for the day, and then you're off to school. Once you get there, you have a jam-packed day filled with roughly 7 or 8 intense classes. At 3:15, you hear the bell. But you know the day isn't over just yet. Now you have prior commitments lasting until the evening. You get home, and you're exhausted. But the day still isn't over. You look at your agenda and dread the 1, 2, maybe 3 hours of homework you're about to tackle, and before you realize it, you find yourself standing in front of the mirror at midnight staring back at a zombie. And if you're anything like me, you kind of just sit there not knowing whether you should laugh or cry. Then you go to bed because in a few hours you have to repeat this cycle all over again.
Now, with a show of hands, how many people in this auditorium are experiencing or have experienced this never-ending cycle? Pause.
Crab reacts.
Oh my gosh. Exactly what I thought.
Hi, my name is Lonnie Nunziata.
And I'm Sarah Kramer. Today, my friend Lonnie and I are here to inform you about the issues in school becoming schooling. Specifically, we will cover our nation's outdated system, its adverse effects on adolescent health, and ways our community can come together to reconstruct secondary education's purpose in America today.
Okay, then we're going to play a video that is 50 seconds long.
The birth of modern education was delivered by a man of the name Horace Mann, who became Secretary of Education in Massachusetts in 1837. Mann proposed a revolutionary educational vision with a system of professional teachers who would teach students an organized curriculum of basic content, again in 1837. He believed that his idea of public schooling was central to good citizenship, democratic participation, and societal well-being. The democratic and republican principles that propelled Mann's vision of the common school have predisposed our assumptions about schooling ever since. Then we're going to show a picture of an old car, and I'm going to say, this is a photo of a car from over 100 years ago. And then we show a picture of a new car. This is a modern day car. Then we show another picture of an old phone. This is a phone from over 100 years ago. And then we show a picture of a modern phone. This is a modern phone. Then we're going to show a picture of an old classroom. This is a classroom setting from over 100 years ago. And then we're going to show a picture of a modern classroom. And this is a modern day classroom. Shocking, right?
Over the course of 100 years, it appears as if there had constantly been innovations, constructive improvements all throughout the country, and even drastic changes in our daily lives. Yet the one thing that consumes the daily life of a high schooler hasn't changed much at all: the classroom. So over the past decade, we, as a nation, have integrated technology into the classroom, such as iPads, silver screens, and of course, the not-so-smart smartboard. Aside from those incorporations, the classroom setup appears almost identical to the picture above. Our current education system is preparing us for a life of the past rather than providing children with the knowledge and skills necessary to become divergent thinkers of the future.
An exciting daily school schedule worked for the generation of the past as it held a singular purpose, that is, to prepare students of the Industrial Revolution age for 9-to-5 factory jobs. During the Industrial Revolution, factory jobs were high in demand due to the booming economy and the invention of Henry Ford's assembly line. Ken Robinson, an international advisor on global education, narrates this concept of modern schooling through explaining how the education system in the United States resembles the operations of an assembly line. The system groups students into batches, where students are divided based on their age group with the date of manufacture, aka graduation date, then places them in separate and designated facilities, classrooms, for acquiring different subjects, teaching them to sit in rows, listen for instructions, and of course are conditioned to stop one area of work and begin another at the sound of a bell.
Not only has testing been a part of the core curriculum, but it has also become one of the few ways to measure students' academic abilities. The creation of the No Child Left Behind Act in 2001 pushed to hold all schools and students accountable for learning an appropriate and adequate education by implementing national standardized testing for grades 3 through 8, and once again in high school. In years to come, Obama's Race to the Top initiative in 2009 would hold teachers accountable by having states evaluate their performance as teachers and how well their students performed on annual Common Core tests. Teachers that fell behind would be fired, and the teachers that succeeded would earn additional federal funding.
The desire for federal funding has increased the need for standardized testing and has left teachers with no other choice but to use the teaching to the book frenzy. Schools and teachers have had to alter their curriculum to fit the class requirements and carve out extra time to review for the end of a course test. Having almost no time to steer off track, teachers have turned into proctors of government-mandated textbooks and requirements, struggling to find a healthy balance of being able to use their own knowledge to educate students and finding time to listen, plan, grade, and prepare students for the end-of-course tests. If students do not perform well on tests, the school risks losing necessary funding. Also, poor teacher evaluations could result in job termination. The consequences of low test scores have flipped our education system, creating environments where staff work out of fear and students memorize, not rationalize.
Now that we are aware of the flaws in our nation's secondary education system, let's turn our focus to the mental and physical health of the students that encompass the hallways of America's high schools. The American Psychological Association defines stress as any uncomfortable emotional experience accompanied by predictable biochemical, physiological, and behavioral changes. A recent study conducted by the APA shows that nearly 1 in 3 teens says that stress drives them to sadness or depression. What was causing the surveyed teen stress? Well, 83% attributed their stress to school, while another 69% said college admissions decisions were to blame. While scientists have discovered that a healthy amount of stress is actually good for an individual, but it is also important to know the difference and to know our limits.
We just stated that too much stress could cause mental discomfort, but did you know it can also cause physical distress? Pediatric Dr. Lawrence Rosen shared with author Vicky Abeles that he has seen a significant increase in panic attacks, motor tics, migraines, and ulcers among children and teens. His patients often complain of experiencing pain during the school week, but suddenly feel relief during the weekend. However, some students aren't as lucky and can't find relief in the weekend. Federal data shows that suicide rates among youth between the ages of 15 to 24 have more than doubled since 1950. What is even more frightening are the results of a survey conducted by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which showed that 1 in every 6 high school students has considered or thought about taking their own life.
Let's think back to that schedule I described at the beginning of the talk. I said I wake up at 6:30 a.m. and typically go to bed around 12:15 a.m. That would mean each night I receive a little over 6 hours of sleep. I mean, 6 hours is fine after you put down a few cups of coffee, right? Nope, it's not fine. Teenagers should be averaging 8 to 9 hours of sleep per night, according to the National Sleep Foundation. With most high school students averaging between 5 to 6 hours per night, it is easy to say that chronic lack of sleep could be considered an epidemic among American high school students. While my dad and several other parents are quick to blame excessive phone use as the reason for the teenage sleep crisis, researchers over at the National Sleep Foundation have recorded more than 1 in 4 parents blame homework as the reason for their child's poor sleeping patterns. Isn't this ironic? Homework is supposed to reinforce the material learned in class. Without adequate sleep, our brains have little time to process what we have learned.
Sometimes our days are longer than we anticipated them to be, and that 5 or 6 hours of sleep we typically get slowly turns into 4 or 3. How is it possible for a student to be on their A game fueled by such little sleep? Naturally, it is practically impossible. However, self-medicating with prescription stimulants such as Adderall make it possible. New York Times reporter Alan Schwarz interviewed teens from 15 of America's top high schools. In his 2012 story, Risky Rise of the Good Grade Pill, Schwarz wrote that the pills are commonly passed throughout friend circles or purchased from other students. He also noted that some students even go far that they will fake symptoms and receive prescriptions from their doctors.
In the last decade, prescription rates for teens has doubled. Those who genuinely suffer from ADHD benefit from the use of drugs such as Adderall. However, those who do not experience a time period of insane focus and an energy boost. Abusing the stimulant comes at a high price. Conditions such as insomnia, anxiety, and loss of appetite are all prevalent among those who abuse the drug. While they may think they are benefiting from the stimulant, the truth is that they are ultimately doing more harm than good. Holding ourselves to specific expectations is important, but becoming so afraid of not meeting those expectations that you are willing to inflict harm on your body is alarming.
After discussing the rapid decline of teenage health in our overworked and overtested society, I ask you to now turn your attention to helping us discover a solution to the issues presented today. Changing the way our country measures a student's success may be the only path to adequate change. Cutting back on test-centered classes and incorporating more mindful courses that engage children and young adults may be a start.
Piles of repetitive homework and constant year-round testing is a concept that is foreign to the world's leading country in education, Finland. Finland ranked number 1 in the world for best education systems in 2016, while the United States didn't even make the top 10, solely because they had to measure student success based on scores.
Principal Timo Heikkinen at Kirkkokavari Comprehensive School in Espoo, Finland, comments on the situation involving the attempt of the U.S. federal government bribing school districts with federal funding in hope that American students will meet a standard level of knowledge through mandatory testing. If you only measure the statistics, you miss the human aspect. And that's just going to be a quote on the slide. Not only is the testing stressful in itself, but the preparation that goes into the testing causes immense stress for the student and the teacher. Hence the reason why Dr. Walton blames College Board each time before handing out an infamous AP multiple choice practice test. However, this stress is virtually non-existent in Finland. There are no mandated standardized tests except for one exam at the end of a student's senior year in high school. Yes, one exam. Their reality only appears in our dreams. There are no rankings in Finland, no comparisons, and little to no homework. Educators in Finland firmly believe in the idea of rich learning rather than homework and reflex learning. Maybe that's why Finland students are consistent frontrunners on the highly respected PISA international exam.
This brings us to the conclusion, and yes, we are exhausted, but our talk isn't over just yet. After sharing our ideas with you today, we hope that no matter what position you may hold or what grade you may be in, that you too can acknowledge the flaws and solutions presented today and ponder the question, are our students learning or are they just schooling?
I'm Sarah Kramer.
And I'm Lonnie Nunziata.
And this was our idea worth
sharing.